I feel like we should do something a bit different today. We're always about accumulating coins here, collecting, acquiring, studying, cataloging. No, today we are going to spend some money. This was one of the first questions I had when I got my first coin. What could I buy with this back in its day? And it turns out it is surprisingly hard to find answers to this. First, we have the issue of the complete disconnect between our referential modern economy and that of the Romans. Even if we know how much people like a legionary, a farmer, or a skilled laborer made, the thing is that the way of pricing goods of a pre-industrial economy like theirs, with different logistics, prices of labor, a much less productive economy, means sentences that some people do nowadays like, a sestertius was the equivalent of 10 modern dollars, is just absolutely useless. A sestertius was worth a sestertius. It was a denomination in a completely different price equation system. Which means to have a direct connection, we need to compare the wages with prices indicated on direct sources. And of course, it's not like we have many shopping lists or complete lists of prices laying around we can use. So what we're going to do is to determine a time period. This will help us narrow down the sources we can use. And we're also going to specify the nature of the kind of prices we're going to research. Otherwise, this video would take 2 months to research, and it would just be me talking for an hour about the random prices I found. So here's my proposal for the scenario. We are living during the Pax Romana, roughly between the 1st and the 2nd centuries AD. We are random humble Romans, and we are going to the bar. We're going to the Popina in particular, one of the ways the common Romans call the local taverns. We could also call it a taberna. That's where the word tavern comes from. But we aren't going to any tavern. During our journeys through central Italy, we passed through one of the funniest advertisements of an inn the Romans ever made. This is actually a tombstone, made while the owners of an establishment were still alive. They give us their names, showing they have quite a sense of humor. Lucius Calidus Eroticus and his wife, Fania Voluptas, or Mr. Hot Sex and Miss Fania Gorgeous. This, of course, these are trade names, and they are inviting us to their establishment with a bit of a rude joke. The rest of the inscription describes an interaction between the innkeeper and the client, as the client orders the bill. Innkeeper, let's work out the bill. Well, of course, you've had a sextarius of wine and some bread. That is going to be 1 ass. You've had some pulmentarium, 2 asses. For our girl you had fun with, that's going to be 8 asses. And hey to your meal, that's going to be another 2 asses. For the last one, the client answers, that meal is going to be the ruin of me. That's spectacular. No problem spending 8 asses having fun with the local prostitute, but spending 2 asses feeding your meal? Now that is too much. This marvelous piece of history shows us how much an average Roman living in the height of the empire would expect to pay to feed himself. And it gives a direct link to some of the coins we collect. It also shows us how the ass was the base unit of which every mundane transaction was based on. From this information we can infer that most, if not all, transactions on the streets, as people bought their everyday stuff, not only food, were probably counted and paid in asses. That's why we have so many surviving today. So let's take this inscription and make out how much would it cost us to eat out at a tavern. Let's leave the girl and the carnal pleasures out of the equation for this one. We're here just for some drinks and to grab a bite. So for some of the cheapest bread, the staple food of the Romans, and the sextarius of the cheapest wine, that's a bit over half a liter, we have 1 copper ass. Reasonably cheap, I would say. Of course, having just wine and bread would be unimaginably boring, so we're also having some pulmentarium. This is more of a general term for any side dish that would be eaten with bread to give it some flavor, to give it some fun. So the idea of pulmentarium is that, well, it could be anything. Some veggies mixed with spices, some cheese with a little piece of meat, even some sweet additions like mashed figs would qualify as pulmentarium. This is essential to our food, so it's an extra 2 asses or dupondius. Apart from the bread and the sides, We're also adding a sausage to our meal. These were very popular and affordable, so a couple of sausages would probably set you back like 1 as. This gives us a total of 4 asses or 1 sestertius for a hearty meal with wine, bread, sides, and even some meat. Now you know that if you have one of those chunky sestertii like this one from Antoninus Pius I'm holding here, you could fill your stomach at the local tavern. But hey, one of the great pleasures of life is to enjoy a good meal. We don't want just cheap wine and coarse brown bread. We want the good stuff. Well, there is an inscription at another tavern in Pompeii that gives us some prices. Quote, "For 1 ass, you can drink some wine. For 2 asses, you can have the best wine. And for 4 asses, you can drink Falernian." Falernian was a very fancy kind of white wine which is cited multiple times on sources as the most desirable one out there. And as we can see, it was indeed very expensive. Think about it. The price of 1 sextarius of it was the same price as an entire meal, a sestertius. With that extra bit of information, I'm going to get 1 of my denarii, like this one, and I will invite you to sit down with me and we're going to enjoy a meal. A denarius is worth 16 asses, so this amounts to 8 asses per person. Falernian wine is a bit too expensive, but hey, let's go with the good quality wine for 2 asses. Let's get some higher quality bread, which we will estimate at around twice as much as the coarse bread, so 2 asses. We are each having some pulmentarium to garnish our bread, an extra 2 asses, and we still have 2 asses to go. I would be inclined to just keep the change and add it to my collection, but we're going to spend it, so we're both having a double ration of sausages. There goes, for 1 denarius, we could get completely stuffed with high quality food for 2 people. But today I'm feeling particularly generous. I have an aureus here, and I want to spend it with some of you people. The aureus was a very impressive amount of money, around a month's wage for a worker. So a humble innkeeper would definitely raise an eyebrow by seeing you just handing him over a gold coin. But hey, let's suppose the aureus is real and we're going to spend it. How many people can we feed with this coin? An aureus is worth 25 denarii. So since each denarius was 16 asses, we get a total of 400 asses to work with. Okay, let's once again get the good stuff. I want everyone to get drunk on Falernian wine, so each person is drinking 2 sextarii, over a liter of the best wine. Each person is also eating the best white bread, which I'm going to estimate per loaf, so quite a lot of food as well, at 3 asses. The 2 asses pulmentarium isn't enough. I asked the innkeeper to make it better. Add some flavor, some spices, whatever, even if he's charging me an extra 3 asses for it instead of 2. And with the 2 asses per person left, we get the best meat. That amounts to 1 denarius per person, meaning with this gold aureus I could afford a banquet and a very strong hangover to 25 people. Of course, you need to absorb this information with a bit of a grain of salt. These prices were subject to important fluctuations as the ancient economy was very prone to disruptions, famine, and war. But hey, it's fascinating to try to make an estimate of what kind of food our little coins would be able to afford during times of peace, times of stable prices. Hopefully in the future more material giving us prices of goods gets discovered, so we can explore and develop our little ancient Roman menu more often. Now I want to hear from you. How much would you spend on our little Roman tavern? Do you have any particular favorite ancient Roman dishes? Let us know in the comment section down below. I hope you enjoyed this little experiment, this little different video to what I usually make. Leave a like and consider subscribing if you did. Happy collecting, and I'll see you soon.